Hello there, geeks and gamers. I'm MarcTheCyborg, and I have never played Dungeons & Dragons. I was the kid scouring every yard sale for Star Wars toys in the late 80s, have played a ludicrous amount of JRPGs, and have played a few CRPGs, though only 3 to completion, the Knights of the Old Republic games and Dragon Age Origins. I played the Mass Effect trilogy too, but past the first one, they're not really CRPGs at all. They're pretty much just shooters with a few CRPG elements. I've now started Divinity Original Sin 2 twice, but fell off both times before making any significant progress, and put about 4 hours into Wasteland 3 before I got stonewalled by a mafia boss in a casino, who I honestly just can't seem to beat. With all that said, I'm honestly not sure why I felt like diving into the early access version of Baldur's Gate 3. It might have just been the premise and the fact that Larian Studios has an incredible reputation amongst people I respect. After 20 hours, I've completed the early access chapter, and I think I might love this game. But hold up, because I do want to qualify that with a few things. Most important will be a few of the reasons why I don't necessarily think you should play this game right now. We will get there, but first I'll tell you a bit about the game from the perspective of a full-blown CRPG and D&D layman, so if you haven't played the original Baldur's Gate games, don't know what a D20 is, and think that the episode of Community where Chang dresses up as a drow might actually be racist because the word drow means nothing to you,
I attack him! I attack Blackface!
This might be the video for you. Baldur's Gate 3 opens with a brutal and intense CGI cinematic in which you're flying through the air on a Mind Flayer airship. You see a member of your future party, a Githyanki warrior named Lizelle, get a tadpole creature forced into her eye, before the Mind Flayer puts one into your own eye. Shortly afterwards, some Githyanki dragon riders show up and damage the living hell out of the Mind Flayer ship, giving Lizelle, as well as your own character, the opportunity to escape. The rest of the prologue sequence has you teaming up with Lizelle and making your way to the bridge of the ship, but despite your best effort, the ship will crash and you will find yourself stranded on a beach. From there, you will search the wreckage for other survivors and find the people who will eventually become your party. All of these characters are also infected with illithid tadpoles, which kicks off the premise of the main quest. Get the tadpoles out of your party's heads before you all turn into eldritch horrors. Larian Studios use this premise for some great role-playing opportunities, as while you do want the disgusting monster worm out of your brain, it also grants you some pretty useful abilities. You'll want to resist using these abilities, lest you will presumably end up with a bad ending in which you turn into a squid-headed monstrosity, but despite the great responsibility you have, great power can be pretty tempting. Illithid Wisdom is an ability which you can use in conversations, which lets you read your subject's mind and essentially gives you a guaranteed successful skill check, allowing you to use your demon power to gain an advantage in a conversation, which could prevent combat and save resources. These skill checks are a huge part of the game and are handled in a very cool way, which sorta made me realize why people have so much fun with D&D. When you encounter a skill check conversation option, a virtual D20, which is a 20-sided die that nerds use to play their apparently pretty awesome wizard game, pops up on screen. A number is displayed on screen which tells you what the minimum roll required to pass the skill check is, and you click the left mouse button and try your luck. Your stats determine what the minimum target roll will be, and sometimes it'll be as low as a 2, but you'll still strike out and roll a 1, or it'll be as high as 18, but you'll miraculously roll a 20. This creates a lot of exhilarating tension in a way that many games which use skill checks that simply say success or failed after you select a dialogue choice don't really give you. Seeing an on-screen dice roll creates that chest-pounding fear which gives you that fist-pumping dopamine hit when you're successful, and that crushing sorrow when you fail, in a way that a simple text pop-up just doesn't. Another interesting choice they made is that they add a small element of Twitch skill to the dice rolls. At any point, you can click the die in order to stop it mid-roll on the number it's currently on. The rolls appear to cycle through all 20 numbers at random before they stop, so if you're fast, you can sort of count cards by paying attention to the numbers which have gone by. I'm not operating on nearly enough of a Rain Man level to have this method functionally change my success rate by a measurable degree, but every time I clicked to stop the roll early and won, I felt like a total boss. In conclusion, I realized that Dungeons & Dragons players are basically gamblers who don't use money. When you aren't on a dice roll hot streak, or if you just happen to encounter something which
Can't be bargained with, it can't be reasoned with, it doesn't feel pity, or remorse, or fear, and it absolutely will not stop. Ever. Until you are dead.
You'll have to fight, and the combat in Baldur's Gate 3 is very satisfying. It's turn-based, and on each turn you have a distance in which a character can move, a primary action to take, and a secondary action to take. You aren't limited to a specific order in which you do things, so you can move, attack, move some more, then drink a potion, or just move and attack like you would in a tactics RPG. This flexibility adds a lot of depth to the combat and requires you to learn things about your party members, like which of their spells or skills count as secondary actions rather than primary, so you can maximize your combat effectiveness. This is necessary as well because on the classic difficulty, the only one available at present, this game is super difficult. In order to be successful in most of the difficult encounters, you have to be very careful about how you enter combat, how prepared you are for the combat itself, which strategy you choose to implement, and in some ways, you have to break the gameplay systems a little bit. Part of this is likely due to early access balancing, which will probably end up changing prior to the game's 1.0 launch, but we've got what we've got right now, and some of the fights are utter bullshit. One of the situations I got myself into was my fault. I didn't realize that a quest required killing 3 goblin leaders, so I picked a fight with who I thought was the only one, thinking all the other goblins would surrender once he was dead. A couple stealth kills on the magic users to kick things off let me squeak through that battle, but then I found myself in a large cathedral full of attack-on-sight goblins. It was here that I realized you can warp to your camp and heal whenever you're out of combat, even when you're in the middle of a dungeon, so I was forced to use clever positioning to divide and conquer the remaining 2 boss battles. Once I killed the Goblin Witch, I was able to sneak around, thin the herds a bit, then finally take on the Drow Mage. I then fast traveled out of the dungeon, finished off the quest, only to find out that I need to go back there, so I would have to fight my way past the army of drunk goblins in the courtyard, who I was previously able to walk by, as I had not yet killed all of their friends. On re-entering the courtyard across the main bridge, I got absolutely worked. I had no ability to succeed in this battle and thought I might have to start back in an old save file and approach the entire questline differently. However, before I did that, I luckily saw a path leading to the side of the courtyard, which I thought I might be able to get to using the incredibly handy jump action. Turns out I was right, and on the other side of the gap, I climbed up a ladder and found myself able to set my characters up on the courtyard's battlements, where I learned a very important lesson about the ranged combat in this game. Roses are red, chocolate is brown.
It's over, Anakin! I have the high ground!
In Baldur's Gate 3, high ground gives you just crazy buffs to the range and effectiveness of your bows and spells, to the point that the army of goblins which was previously decimating me became relatively easy pickings. I then ventured further into the depths of the cathedral and stumbled upon an encounter which was so utterly broken that I thought I would end my playthrough right there and have a whole paragraph in this video about how these broken-ass minotaurs were flat out unbeatable. You have to fight 2 of them at once, they cast buffs which let them launch like 4 attacks per turn, each of which do stupid amounts of damage, many of which have area of effect damage which hit multiple members of your party at once, and others which have knockback which can knock you off the narrow paths of the Underdark. Yet, before I quit, I took that last bit of knowledge and applied it with what is apparently the most powerful action in the game. The shove ability is often the difference between success and defeat. I was in the middle of playing Call of Duty with Jeremy, Josiah, Uche, and Lethal Lightning, alt-tabbing over to Baldur's Gate 3 between matches, and ended up killing what I thought were previously impossible enemies. I still think the design could be tightened up a bit, as those Minotaurs are super OP and there isn't any way to sweet talk your way past them, but I was happy to find that the game's combat was in fact very possible to get through. The presentation of the game, even in this early access state, is already super slick. Perhaps it's a nod to BioWare, who developed the original 2 Baldur's Gate titles, that the camera pulls in and gives you a medium close-up shot-reverse shot during conversations, similar to every BioWare game since Knights of the Old Republic. You wouldn't think this would make quite as big of a difference as it does, but compared to Larian's previous game, Divinity Original Sin 2, which had locked bird's eye view even during conversations, this does a lot to connect you to the characters. The facial capture isn't industry-shaking or anything, but it is pretty solid and the voice acting is truly great. This is definitely aided by the very solid writing, certainly, but everyone from your main party characters, to the main quest givers, to the random encounter characters are performed and presented very well. Due to the 4-character adventuring party limit, you'll probably find yourself being drawn to certain characters over others, Shadowheart is best girl, but the upside is that you could do another playthrough, make a new character, choose new best friends, and make completely different choices, giving you a much different experience. And yes, I hear the CRPG experts in the comments section who are undoubtedly saying, welcome to the whole friggin' CRPG genre, noob, but from what I saw through the lens of my limited experience, this is a pretty good one. As far as the early access state is concerned, there are certainly issues. I saw a bunch of visual clipping issues, and even had a few crashes, including 2 that occurred toward the end of difficult battles that I was doing well in, but luckily I'm pretty liberal about quick saving, so I didn't lose my mind over those. Those things are ultimately not a huge deal. The bigger issue is that only the first chapter is in the game right now, which took about 20 hours to finish, and save games will not be carried over to the final game. So currently, Baldur's Gate 3 is a full-price game which you can play the first 20 hours of with the knowledge that all the challenges you face and overcome will be set right back to 0 when 1.0 launches. That can be a bit of a kick in the balls, but I am kind of looking forward to navigating that Goblin Fortress with a better plan and seeing if Larian Studios decides to make that Minotaur fight a little bit less bullshit. That was an accidental pun. Get it? Minotaurs? Bulls? They're They're bulls. They're bull men. However, I don't recommend buying the game right now unless what I've shown you so far is very exciting to you. I do really recommend this game. I think it's awesome and I'm looking forward to playing the final product, but right now you're essentially signing up to pay $60 in order to be a beta tester. And that can be a fun experience, but particularly if you're not a big CRPG fan, I'd recommend waiting until 2021 when the full game launches. Until then, maybe try Divinity Original Sin 2. It's made by the same studio and is one of the few games with Steam and Nintendo Switch crossplay, which is basically like Jeremy and I doing the Predator handshake.
You son of a bitch.